All right, so I think most of you are familiar with Venn diagrams. I think most of you have seen that before. If you haven't, if you think you're not, once you see one, you'll say, oh yeah, that's what that is. So a Venn diagram has often two circles that overlap, and sometimes it has three circles or even more that overlap. The examples that we're going to talk about today have two circles, but it is very simple to also transfer to a larger one. The wording in these problems can be a little bit tricky, so once you figure that out, it won't be that hard. In a class of 30 students, 19 study physics, 17 study chemistry, and 15 study both of these subjects. So what's the problem that we see in that first sentence? In a class of 30 students, 19 study physics, 17 study chemistry, 15 study both of those subjects. There's only 30 students, right? Those numbers add up to more than 30. Can anybody think of why? Go ahead, Kyle. Yeah, so they didn't make that clear in the wording that the students that study both are included in these other totals. So if 15 are studying both, that means how many are studying just physics?
4.
Yeah, good. 4 are studying just physics and 2 are studying just chemistry. And then of course there'll be some students who aren't studying either. Display this information on a Venn diagram and determine the probability that a randomly selected class member studies, so we have physics and chemistry, and then we have physics or chemistry. The or in probability is inclusive. So it doesn't mean that it has to be just one of them. It could be physics or chemistry or both. So on your paper, I want you to take a stab at what that Venn diagram would look like. It's going to have two circles, and it's going to have a rectangle outside of the circles to show all of the people who don't do either. Okay, so here we go. We said there are 15 that study both physics and chemistry. And altogether, there are 19 that study physics, but we already have 15 of them right here, so there are only 4 in the just physics part, so that's your 19. 17 study chemistry, we already have 15 in the overlap, so only 2. And when we add these up, we got 21, which tells us there are 9 students out here in the universal set. The universal set is basically everyone. And those 9 students don't study physics or chemistry. Maybe they study biology, earth science, I don't know. All right, so I saw some people taking a stab at the probabilities already. Remember, the probabilities are going to be ratios or ratios written as decimals, so not just numbers. Probability that a student studies physics and chemistry, so how many study both? 15, good. Out of how many altogether? Out of 30, good. Okay, so you should have 15 out of 30 or 1/2 for that one. And I suggest you write that on your paper so you have some good notes. Studies physics or chemistry? Anybody want to raise their hand and share that one? Go ahead, Adam.
Is it 6 out of 30?
Anybody else have 6 out of 30? A couple people have 6 out of 30. So if they're thinking 6 out of 30, it's because you're forgetting that the or is inclusive, meaning it could be chemistry or physics or both. Let's give Adam a chance to fix that. So Adam, if it could be chemistry or physics or both, how many people would that be? Very good, 21 out of 30. And then that will simplify. All right, so I totally love that some of you got 6 out of 30 to start, because now it's going to stick in your brain that it's the or. It's the inclusive or, which means one or the other or both. Kenneth, why do I feel like you are not taking careful notes? How about MJ? Is MJ taking notes? Is he setting an example for you? Is he setting an example for you? Okay, let's go to the next one. So, same picture for each slide here. What is the probability that a student studies physics but not chemistry, and then chemistry but not physics? Write those down, compare with a neighbor. Okay, remember there are 4 students that study just physics, and there are 2 students that study just chemistry. Does anybody want to share their answer for C?
4
All right, so I heard 4 out of how many? 30? Yes, 4 out of 30, which is 2 out of 15. Anybody want to share an answer for D? I heard 2 out of 30. Anybody else like 2 out of 30? Okay. Good. And simplify it to 1 out of 15. So I feel like the hard part is setting up the Venn diagram. And then once you have it set up, it's really easy to read the probabilities from there, as long as you know what it's asking. Okay, same Venn diagram. What is the probability a student studies neither subject, and what is the probability a student studies exactly one of the subjects? So if you haven't done those yet, get those written down. Okay. Raise your hand if you would like to share your answer for E. I see 1 hand. I'm hoping for a few more. 2 hands, 3 hands, 4 hands, 5 hands. Maybelline, what you get for neither subject? 9 over 30. Anybody else get 9 over 30? All right. For E, yeah. All right, let's take a look. Excellent. 9 over 30 and simplify to 3 over 10. Raise your hand if you have F, exactly one of the subjects. I see 2 hands already. 3 hands, 4 hands, 5 hands. Brian, what'd you get?
6 out of 30.
Anybody else think it might be 6 out of 30? All right, a lot of people are agreeing. Let's take a look. Okay, 6 out of 30, good, which will simplify to 1/5. So you guys are doing super with this. You might be glad to hear that there's not an activity today, because I knew that you would get this. All right. What is the probability that a student studies physics given that he or she studies chemistry? Now, you can use a formula. It will work. It's no longer on the board, but it should be on your warm-up. Remember, the probability of B given A is the probability of A and B divided by the probability of the given one, which was A in that case. But you can also look at the picture and just do it straight from the picture. You don't need to use the formula if you can figure it out without. If you get an answer, compare with the neighbor. Does anybody want to share an answer? Okay, I'm taking that as you're not 100% sure. So with the formula, you would do the probability that they study both physics and chemistry, 15 over 30, divided by the given one, which is chemistry, and that would be 17 over 30. But you can also just do it by looking at this. So we said, given that she studies chemistry, so I'm going to find my little scribble tool. Given that she studies chemistry means we're only looking at these 17 kids that study chemistry. Out of those 17, how many study physics? 15, right. Out of this 17 kids that study chemistry, only 15 of them study physics. So that's another way to look at it. So if you're able to look at the picture that way, you don't have to use the formula. Okay. Find the probability a student studies chemistry given that he or she studies physics. So practice that again. You can either use the formula or you can use the picture. In this picture, just as a reminder, there are 4 that study just physics, 15 that study both, 2 that study chemistry, only chemistry, and 9 that study neither. Probability a student studies chemistry given that she studies physics. You have an answer already?
I think so.
Okay, let's give them one more minute and I'll let you share that. You could, or if you wanted, you could wait just a few minutes till we finish this. It's up to you.
I finished the primary.
The other part too? Okay. Why don't you ask your neighbor there to check your work as you go through? Henry, you're willing to do that, right? Thank you. Okay, Adam, go ahead.
I think it's 15 out of
Does anybody else get 15 out of 19? Okay, a few people do, good. All right, so given that he or she studies physics, there are 19 that study physics, and out of that, 15 of them study chemistry, so I think that should be right. There you go. Okay, so we have one more slide, but it actually has a bunch of questions on it and another Venn diagram to make. Okay, so this time we have 50 students go hiking and they have some unfortunate situations. 23 of them get sunburnt and 22 of them get bitten by ants. And only 10 of them are neither sunburnt nor bitten by ants. So I'm gonna start drawing a Venn diagram, but I want you guys to also, and I want you to put some numbers in there.
Well, I added everything up and I got 55.
Okay,
Then I subtracted by 50 and got 5 extra. And since I knew the 5 wouldn't go in the 10, I just split it evenly between the 23 and 22.
okay, I think it's a good start. So he added up all these numbers and found that that was 55 students. So there are 5 extra. And that those are the 5 kids that we're counting twice. We counted them once in the sunburn and once in the bitten by ants, but they're just one person. So we're gonna put the 5 in the middle. We also know that there are 10 that are neither, so we're gonna put that in too. 5 in the middle and 10 in the neither. Okay. Altogether, 23 kids were sunburnt. 5 of them are in the overlap. So how many are going to be over here just sunburnt? 18, good. All right, and 5 are in the overlap. 22 were bitten by ants. So how many were only bitten by ants? 17. Goodbye, Gabe. Okay. So now we have, I think it totals 50, and I think that it still fulfills everything that it told us. 23 were sunburnt, 22 were bitten by ants, 10 were neither. So that's the tricky part. And then you're going to go ahead and find these probabilities. I'll give you, actually, we don't have a ton of time. Let's just do these together. All right. Probability that they escaped being bitten by ants. So here's the bitten by ants. How many were not bitten by ants?
28.
Good. 28 out of? Good. Probability a student was both bitten and sunburnt. Poor kids. How many were both? And, yeah, very good. 5 out of 50. 1 out of 10. All right, for the or, remember it's the inclusive or, so bitten or sunburnt or both. How many kids is that? What'd you get?
40 out of 50.
You also got 40 out of 50. Perfect. So 40 out of 50 is Orpheus. Good. Yeah. This one? So escaped being bitten is everybody who wasn't bitten by ants. So here's the people who were bitten by ants, and the people who weren't would be the 18 and the 10. Good question. All right, let's raise your hand for this one if you have it. Was bitten given that the student was sunburnt? You see one hand. All right, Lucas, what are you thinking?
5 out of 23.
Does anybody else think it could be 5 out of 23? One person? Okay, so I can see that you're not quite ready with those conditional probabilities yet, but let's see if we can confirm Lucas and Kyle's answer. Was bitten given that the student was sunburnt? So we know they were sunburnt, so we're only considering these 23 people. And out of those 23, 5 were bitten by ants. So I agree. All right, and then the last one, probability that a student was sunburnt given that they were not bitten. Oh, that's a tricky one. So they were not bitten means that we are considering only the people not bitten, these people. Okay, those are the people we're considering. What's the probability that a student in that group was sunburnt? Go ahead, Ireland.
18 out of 28 or 9/14.
Okay, anybody want to agree with 18 out of 28 or 9/14? I see 1, 2, 3. Yeah, very good. Okay. Okay. So I think we went kind of quickly through that last one because I saw we were running short on time. I'm happy to take any questions on that. I'm going to stop the recording.